You are our refuge, for your faithful love endures forever. In spite of this government shutdown, our confidence in your love sustains us. Be merciful to our nation and world, for you are our hope. Lord, provide our lawmakers today with the music of your wisdom, that they may bring hope out of despair and joy out of sadness. Increase their faith, hope, and love, that they may receive your promises. Teach us all to trust in your prevailing providence, even in life's storms, because you are the God who saves us. Hasten the day when we can say, "This is the Lord's doing, and it is wonderful to see." We pray in your sovereign name. Amen.
Will you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
He thought I was going to be late, didn't he?
Oh, were you here yesterday, too?
I was here yesterday, too, yeah. Previous order, the leadership time is reserved. Morning business is closed. Under the previous order, the Senate will resume consideration of H.J. Res. 104, which the clerk will report.
H.J. Res. 104, providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5, United States Code, and so forth.
Mr. President.
Senator from Iowa.
Yeah. Monday of this week, I invited 8 of my colleagues to be briefed on an issue that we just found out about it from Deputy Director Dan Bongino. What we learned is very disturbing and outrageous. Political conduct by the Biden FBI. As most of you know, this year, Senator Johnson and I made records public relating to our investigation of Arctic frost. Arctic frost was the FBI investigation that became Jack Smith's electoral case against then-citizen Trump. We've shown that partisan FBI agents and the Department of Justice prosecutors created and advanced that matter. And they did so in violation of FBI rules. We've shown the FBI expanded the investigation to almost 100 Republican groups and individuals, even including Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA. And we've learned that Arctic frost included the targeting of at least 8 Republican senators, the same ones that I invited to that briefing. In 2023, Biden FBI sought and obtained cell phone tolling data about my colleagues' personal phones. We've been told the date range for that data was January 4th through January 7th, 2021. This is obviously an outrage, obviously an unconstitutional breach, and Attorney General Bondi and Director Patel need to hold accountable those that are involved in that serious breach and wrongdoing. And I am confident that those two officials will do just that. Now, based on the evidence to date, Arctic frost and related weaponizations by the federal law enforcement under Biden was arguably worse than the Nixon Watergate scandal. I've also been informed that Arctic frost documents, like the ones targeting Republican, have been hidden in a prohibited access file. Now, let me tell you what I think prohibited access file is. It might be legitimate for national security. It might be legitimate for intellectual property. It may be legitimate for personal privacy of American citizens, but it should never be used what it was used for, to hide things from the public that would embarrass bureaucrats and government officials and maybe even political officials. So, as I've made public through my oversight, when files are in a prohibited access file, they receive what the FBI calls a false negative search result on their database. So that means that if you ask for emails or some records of the FBI and they type it in, it doesn't show up, so then it doesn't exist. Clearly, this impedes responses to congressional oversight and court cases. It allows for misconduct. Because of whistleblowers informing me of this serious problem, the FBI is now reviewing these file types. And only because of that review, the document about targeting 8 Republican senators was located. Lastly, I started Arctic frost investigation July 2022. Now, it has taken years to get records and to advance the investigation. Sometimes my oversight work's done quietly outside the public eye. But what the public is now seeing is the importance of congressional oversight, the importance of whistleblowers exposing government misconduct. My whistleblowers deserve great thanks for what they've helped to expose. We were all shocked and outraged by the unjustified fishing expedition Deputy Director Bongino informed us about. The FBI told us in our briefing that not a single one of my colleagues on the list was under investigation. So, the FBI did its dirty digging without legitimate predication. We expect Patel and Bongino shut this abuse down and do it immediately. And I want my colleagues and Iowans to know that I won't give up until I've followed all the facts and accountability is delivered for the American people. I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Ossobrooks.
Mr. President,
Democrat leader.
ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Mr. President, it's now been a full week, a whole week, of Donald Trump's government shutdown, and the country is feeling the sting of Republican intransigence. Over 700,000 federal employees have been furloughed. Services are being disrupted. The Wall Street Journal reported this morning that businesses nationwide with government contracts are in peril. The Republican manufactured disaster did not need to happen. The government is shut down for one reason, and one reason only. Donald Trump and the Republicans would rather kick 15 million people off health insurance, would rather raise premiums by thousands and thousands of dollars a year on over tens of millions of Americans, rather than sit down and work with Democrats on fixing health care. That's the reason. They'd rather kick tens of millions off health care than sit down with us and work with us on addressing this so important issue, so important to the American people. Now, Americans are frustrated. The cost of living continues to go up. Donald Trump's tariffs have sent grocery prices spiking. It's even more expensive now to buy a cup of coffee. First things many people drink in the morning, they're going to see Trump's tariffs hurting them. People are worried about paying more on their electricity bill. 41 states have seen increased prices. Why? Because in their mania of hating clean energy, they cut out so much of wind and solar, solar being the cheapest form of new energy to go on the grid. Americans are pessimistic that any of this is going to get any better, and they blame President Trump and the Republicans. A CBS poll from a few days ago found that 75% of Americans don't think the administration, the Trump administration, is focusing enough on lowering costs. Fixing health care would be at the top of the list for lowering costs for people. Now, Democrats want to reopen the government right away. We want to have a serious negotiation to fix health care so that people can see their costs go down. And we can do both. Fix health care and reopen the government. This is not an either-or thing, which Republicans are making it. And the American people don't like it. Democrats have been consistent. Our position remains the same. We've been saying it for months. Republicans are shutting down the government because they refuse to address the crisis in American health care. One sentence sums it all up. Republicans are shutting down the government because they refuse to fix and address the crisis in American health care. Now, our Republican colleagues, being against public sentiment, are flailing. On the one hand, it's starting to sink in for Republicans that their position of not fixing health care is untenable in the eyes of the American people. As President Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. Well, public sentiment is building on fixing health care. It's high already. It's getting higher every day. And it's not going to recede. It's getting even stronger. Republicans refuse to acknowledge that public sentiment is not on the side of Trump and Johnson. And Johnson has become the #1 roadblock to ending a shutdown. He sent everyone home for 3 weeks now. If you care about fixing the crisis, if you care about reopening the government, how the hell do you keep your House not in session for 3 weeks? And now but even so, Johnson himself is feeling the heat. At first, he and his caucus were telling Republicans in the House, don't talk about health care. They knew the American people were against what they thought. Johnson's leadership team explicitly told members in a memo not to mention health care when talking about the shutdown. Of course, that didn't work, because the public knows overwhelmingly that we need lower health care premiums, and that's what Democrats are fighting for, and that's what's preventing the Republicans from coming to the table. They don't want to fix it. That's why they're causing the shutdown. So, feeling the heat, Speaker Johnson held a press conference yesterday and said perhaps one of the most ridiculous things I've heard from Republicans in a long time. He said, "Look me right under the camera," said Johnson, I'll tell you very clearly, Republicans are the ones concerned about health care. As he did it, he couldn't look right into the camera. Deep in his subconscious, he knew he wasn't telling the truth. What he said was nonsense. He couldn't even look in the camera when he said this because he knows the American people don't buy what he's saying. Republicans are the ones who cut $1 trillion from Medicaid, who tried to repeal the ACA. 3 times we asked them to vote to sustain it after the new year. 3 times they voted it down. So that's first. And second, Donald Trump is making all these terrible threats led by the evil Mr. Vote. Trump is saying he's going to fire people en masse, saying that federal workers don't even deserve back pay, even though he signed the law guaranteeing back pay in 2019. Again, they're threatening, they're bludgeoning, they're using the American people, government workers, as pawns. But these kind of tactics from the administration are backfiring. Americans don't like being used as pawns, even if they're not one subject to being held hostage. They don't like watching it happen. And the American people know clearly that it's Republicans who are in charge. Republicans have the White House. They control the House and the Senate. So when people are laid off, when people are not paid, when people are not getting back pay, they know it's the Republicans trying to do it, even though they're using it to try and bully us. It's not Democrats who are threatening to fire people or threatening to withhold back pay. It's the Republican side, Donald Trump, saying all of this, and the American people know it and will blame them for these mass firings and chaos. The data is very clear that trying to use the public as political pawns will backfire for Republicans. And plenty of Republicans in Congress know this. That's why, behind closed doors, some Republicans are praying the administration tones down its threats, because these mean-spirited tactics by Russell Vogt aren't going to win in the court of public opinion or in the hearts and minds of Americans. Look, Republicans are tripping over themselves because they're divided on the core issue, fixing people's health care. When someone on the hard right, the hard right, Marjorie Taylor Greene openly says Republican leaders are wrong and that we need to fix the premiums, that's how you know how deeply Republicans are split. Let me read what she said. Quote, this is Marjorie Taylor Greene, not Chuck Schumer. "I'm going to go against everyone on this issue," health care that is, "because when tax credits expire this year, my own adult children's insurance premiums for 2026 are going to double, along with all the wonderful families and hardworking people in my district. More Republicans should listen to her, because on this issue, she's right on the money." Meanwhile, Democrats' position hasn't changed. We urge our Republican colleagues to join us in a serious negotiation to reopen the government and extend ACA premiums. It's the right thing to do for the American people, and by doing it, we'll be able to quickly reopen the government before any more serious damage is done by the Republicans to our country. And finally, on nominations, Mr. President, today the Senate will vote to advance the nomination of Jennifer Mascott of Maryland to be a circuit court judge for the Third Circuit. I'll oppose Mascott's nomination because she does not seem to have any other qualification for the job other than this. She's a career loyalist, a sycophant to Donald Trump. She has no connections to the Third Circuit. She's never lived in Delaware. She's not even licensed to practice law in Delaware. In fact, her only link to the state is a beachside summer home. If you look at Mascott's resume, the only time she's ever really practiced law is the 2 years she worked in the Trump's Department of Justice. That's it. And you're putting her on the circuit court, one of the most important courts in the country? Well, the only reason Donald Trump's putting Mascott on the bench is because he thinks she will do whatever he wants from the bench. She'll be a total Trump sycophant. Not look at the law, not look at the facts, just look at Donald Trump and see which way he's nodding and follow it. This nominee is another Trump example. It's another troubling example of the Trumpification of the federal bench, where loyalists replace jurists and obeisance to Trump matters more than adherence to the law or precedent or even the Constitution. It's just like what we saw yesterday in the Judiciary Committee. Pam Bondi exposed herself as woefully unqualified to be Attorney General, but a supremely obeisant Trump deputy is what she is instead. She spent her time dodging questions, hurling insults, and, most importantly for Donald Trump, defending the president's interests more than anything else, even if the law or the facts or the truth pointed strongly in the other direction. This troubling pattern of obeisance, above all, in our judiciary system is dangerous, troubling. So I will oppose today's nominee and urge my colleagues to do the same. Yield the floor. Note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Senate quorum call.
Yes.
I would ask unanimous consent the quorum call be suspended.
The objection.
Mr. President, we are now in day 8 of a government shutdown, and which is truly unfortunate and unnecessary, and totally at the behest of left-wing Democrat special interest groups who have pressured the Democrat leadership into a position that makes absolutely no sense to any thinking person. I want you to think about where we are. Think about this scenario. You have a bill passed by the House of Representatives over here in the Senate, 24 pages long, clean, short-term, nonpartisan, no policy writers, no Republican priorities, a clean resolution to fund the government, which there are 55 senators, 55 out of 100 senators are voting for the clean, short-term funding resolution that would open up the government. The President of the United States has said that as soon as it is passed in the Senate, he will sign it into law. So what you have is complete, unified support for a short-term funding resolution to keep the government open and make sure that all the government employees who are currently being impacted and their families can get back to work and get paid again. And so it's always interesting when the Democrat leader comes down here and describes this fantasy world where the bill that they proposed, which would only get 47 votes here in the United States Senate, not even 50, not 51, not a majority, and certainly not the 60 that are necessary to pass consequential legislation in the Senate, it wouldn't get a single vote in the House of Representatives. So they've got a bill, a proposal, that they say keeps the government open, that can't pass the Senate, wouldn't pass the House, and wouldn't be signed into law by the President. You tell me who is responsible for the government shutdown. Republicans passed a bill in the House, over here in the Senate, 24 pages long, sitting right at the desk. We can pick it up and pass it today, send it to the President, who will sign it into law. The government opens up again. Or you can take this proposal the Democrats have, which has a $1.5 trillion in new spending, allows for free health care coverage for non-citizens, completely obliterates the $50 billion rural hospital fund that we put in place to support rural hospitals in this country who are struggling. And they think that would pass, doesn't pass here, doesn't pass the House, wouldn't get signed into law of the President. So just a logical person, think about this. Think about the juxtaposition of those two positions, and you tell me who is shutting the government down. We have a straightforward, simple proposition. A 24-page funding resolution to keep the government open with no partisan policy riders, no gimmicks, short-term, funds the government through November the 21st to give us an opportunity to continue to do the government funding the way we should do it through the appropriations process, where we have the committees meeting and Republicans and Democrats contributing, and then bring it to the floor and have an open amendment process here. That's the way the government should normally be funded. And so what this does is provides a short-term extension in order for all that to happen. That's all that we're talking about. Now, they have other issues they want to bring up, which I've said before, we're happy to discuss. And yes, there are some things that I think there is interest on both sides in trying to address when it comes to health care in this country. But you can't take the federal government hostage and expect to have a reasonable conversation on those issues. The government needs to be funded. Federal employees need to go back to work. Federal agencies and departments need to be open in providing the services that the American people expect. It's that simple. And that's really what this is all about. Again, nothing more, nothing less, nothing else. It's whether or not they want to support a 24-page funding resolution that keeps the government open or continue to vote for $1.5 trillion in new spending, free health care for non-citizens, and completely wiping out a $50 billion rural hospital fund that's designed to support rural hospitals in this country. Something that would get 47 votes here in the Senate and not a majority in the House of Representatives, wouldn't get a single vote, honestly, among Republicans in the House of Representatives, and would not be signed into law by the President, versus something, again, passed by the House, here at the Senate. All we need is 5 more votes. There are a majority of United States senators today who support the short-term funding resolution. 55 out of 100. We need 5 Democrats. You tell me who's shutting the government down. And Mr. President, I think that the public is coming wise to this debate and this argument and these fallacious arguments that are being made by the Democrats. In fact, there's a new Harvard-Harris poll that came out Monday that found that 70% of voters oppose the government shutdown. 70%. And of interest to my Democrat colleagues, 65% of voters, including 63% of independents, think Democrats should end the shutdown by accepting a continuing resolution like the clean funding resolution I just described that's in front of us. So what are my Democrat colleagues doing? Well, after their resounding defeat in the presidential election last November, you'd think they might be paying attention to the strong majority of voters who would like the shutdown to end as well. Now, you'd think they might notice that 63% of independents, voters I'm sure Democrats would like to capture in the next election, want Democrats to accept a resolution like the clean CR in front of us. But you'd be wrong. Because, Mr. President, Democrats are still deeply enthralled to the far left. And they're taking their marching orders for this shutdown from far-left interest groups. And I mean that literally. A recent Axios article reported, and I quote, "Progressive grassroots groups are blasting congressional Democrats on speed dial to hold the line in any negotiations to reopen the government," end quote. Now that followed an Axios report that found, and I quote again, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and his staff are closely coordinating their government shutdown strategy with outside liberal groups. Backing down and helping fund the government like Schumer did in March is unacceptable, the groups have told his team, end quote. Backing down and helping fund the government like Schumer did in March is unacceptable, the groups have told his team, end quote. And so the liberal groups say, jump, and Democrat leaders say, how high? Forget the robust majority of independents who want Democrats to end this shutdown. You know, Mr. President, back in the day, and by back in the day, I mean as recently as 6 months ago, the Democrat leader was a pretty passionate opponent of government shutdowns. Yeah, he was an opponent. So much so that even though he didn't like the continuing resolution we passed in the spring, he voted for it anyway because in his words, and again I quote, a government shutdown would be far worse, end quote. But then progressive groups got big time mad. And now the Democrat leader is leading the charge to keep the government shut down indefinitely, apparently. And all those federal workers and hardworking Americans he was so worried about before seem to have just slipped his mind. In fact, Democrats have barely reacted to the fact that federal workers are going to start missing pay. Mr. President, when we realized that we were going to need a continuing resolution to allow us more time to complete the fiscal year 2026 appropriations bills, Republicans wanted to do everything we could to ensure that there was no government shutdown, which is why we put forward a clean, continuing resolution with no Republican policies or partisan policy riders. We knew a shutdown would be costly and disruptive for hardworking Americans, and we were determined to ensure the Democrats had no reason to oppose our CR. The Democrats weren't deterred by the fact that there was nothing for them to object to in our bill, and they decided to oppose it anyway. Now, Mr. President, Democrats will get another chance this week to vote to keep the government open. And I hope that the Democrat leader and Democrat senators can summon up some of that concern they used to have about shutdowns and vote to reopen the government. At the very least, if the Democrat leader is too worried about his polling to vote to reopen himself, he could allow Democrat senators who do care about the functioning of our government to join Republicans to reopen. Mr. President, I yield the floor. I understand that there is a bill at the desk that's due for a second reading.
The clerk will read the title of the bill for the second time.
S-2983, a bill to reauthorize the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015.
Mr. President, in order to place the bill on the calendar under the provisions of Rule 14, I would object to further proceeding.
Objections heard. The bill will be placed on the calendar.
Mr. President.
Majority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, following up with what the majority leader just said, I have here the Washington Post from this morning, and they have an editorial. And what they have in bold print, it says, Democratic leaders play a dangerous game. That's what the Democrats are doing. We just heard the majority leader talk about what we're trying to do, what we're facing, how Chuck Schumer is being held hostage by the liberal groups who set up the war room with him. And what we see is a dangerous game being played and threats to the American people. This goes on to say there is a clean funding bill on the table. This is the Washington Post, Mr. President, this morning. There is a clean funding bill on the table. Only a handful of Senate Democrats need to vote for it. Instead, the majority leader is leading the minority leader is leading the Democrat Party into a box canyon. Can't get out. And it's a dangerous game, and it's not just dangerous for them, it's dangerous for the American people. That's where the danger lies. So I come to the floor, Mr. President, because the American people are facing an immediate crisis. And they know why. Anybody watching knows why. It's because Senate Democrats have now voted 5 times against a clean, bipartisan, continuing resolution that would open the government today. This is day 8 of the Schumer shutdown. Day 8. Country is held hostage by the Democrats, and they're playing a dangerous game. This isn't a game, Mr. President, but that's what the Democrats have turned it into. So the question before us is simple. What have the Democrats accomplished during this dangerous game that they're playing. October 10th, on Friday, in 2 days, Border Patrol agents and other federal workers will receive only half a paycheck. That's the result of the Democrats' dangerous game. It'll be their last paycheck until and at least the Schumer shutdown ends. Democrats vote to reopen the government. They could do it today. House of Representatives passed a clean continuing resolution, current funding levels. Democrats voted 13 times under Joe Biden for a continuous resolution to keep the government funded. Continuing resolution funds our military, pays for law enforcement, continues food assistance for moms and young children, keeps small business loans flowing. 13 times they voted for this. Now they reject it because they want to please their radical extreme base, the base that has put up a war room that Chuck Schumer has bowed down to. That's what we've just heard from the majority leader, that they're the ones calling the shots. And that's why we find ourselves in this situation. Democrats are demanding radical new policies before they allow the government to reopen. I've seen their demand letter, $1.5 trillion in new expenses, as the majority leader just outlined here on the floor. Their ransom note is filled with liberal policies. I look at it, it is stitched together like Frankenstein's monster. $1.5 trillion in reckless new spending, free health care for non-citizens, free Medicaid for working-aged, able-bodied adults who refuse to work. There are over 5 million of these individuals in the United States, and yet they refuse to work. And the Democrats want them to all get free Medicaid. $50 billion the Democrats want to cut from vulnerable rural hospitals, hospitals in rural communities. Do the Democrats not care at all about those communities? Even though there are rural communities in their states, they are beholden to the big cities and the mayors, the sanctuary cities that control the Democrat Party. That's what we're dealing with here. That's why the Washington Post calls what the Democrats are doing, as I pick it up again, Mr. President, a dangerous game. They're holding the American people hostage to extract far left-wing concessions. They're telling our service members their paychecks are negotiable. They're telling small businesses their dreams are collateral damage in a partisan fight. They're telling mothers and young children that WIC benefits are leverage for the far left demands of health care for non-citizens. Republicans remain committed to ensuring families receive the support they deserve. The Democrats have chosen repeatedly to keep the government closed for political purposes only. American families are feeling the pain nationwide. In Georgia, more than 100,000 federal employees are wondering where they will find the money to pay their bills and buy their groceries. In Arizona, 344,000 children enrolled in SNAP face uncertainty. The benefits are running out. Time is of the essence. Shutdown Democrats are telling these families problems aren't urgent. Well, they're urgent to those families, and the Democrats don't seem to care. In New York, almost 500,000 individuals who rely on WIC will lose access at the end of this week. It's already Wednesday. We're talking about pregnant women. We're talking about new mothers. We're talking about young children. They depend on this program. In Illinois, every week the shutdown continues. It costs the state's economy over $500 million. That's jobs lost, paychecks missed, opportunities evaporated. In Michigan, small businesses face delays of $92 million in loans because the Small Business Administration is frozen due to the shutdown. These businesses are the backbones of our communities and our economy. They should be able to make payroll, keep their doors open, not as the Democrats continue to play what has been termed a dangerous game. In Nevada, for each month the shutdown continues, consumer spending from lost wages will fall by over $200 million. It's money that won't flow into local businesses, won't pay rent, won't put food on the table. In New Jersey, telehealth programs are on hold. I'm a doctor. Without these programs, patients could be put at greater risk. In New Hampshire, workers maintaining our nuclear attack submarines, they face furloughs and unpaid work. But this goes beyond missing a paycheck.
This is about national security. The Schumer shutdown, the dangerous game that he is playing, puts America's safety at risk. At airports nationwide, we are already seeing the direct effects of the shutdown. Flights are being delayed, security lines are growing longer. Even the head of the Teamsters Union, Sean O'Brien, says that Democrats' political theater is something he can see right through. He says a shutdown will hurt working people, period. American workers are not a bargaining chip. That's the leader of the Teamsters Union, Mr. President. He goes on to say, senators should stop screwing around and pass the House-passed clean short-term funding bill. That's where we are today. He's right. But regrettably, Senate Democrats are treating the American people as bargaining chips, as hostages, and that's why they sent the list of demands as ransom. Democrats have now voted 5 times against opening the government, 5 times against supporting our military, 5 times against paying law enforcement officers, 5 times against food assistance for women and infants and children, 5 times against the small business loans that help Main Street. 5 times Democrats have looked at the mounting damage of the Schumer shutdown and shrugged their shoulders. That's the situation we have today. The American people overwhelmingly say Democrats should pass a clean continuing resolution and end the shutdown immediately. There is a clean bipartisan resolution before the Senate, ready for a vote right now. It reopens the government today. It would protect the paychecks and the programs the American people depend upon. It would end the uncertainty that is gripping millions of American families. The question is not whether the Democrats can end the shutdown. It's will they have the integrity to do it, or will they continue to play this dangerous game with our nation and with our families. And, Mr. President, on a separate matter, before Senate Democrats shut down the federal government, they shut down the very Senate floor on which I stand. And they did it by freezing the confirmation process. For months, their blockade created a growing backlog of qualified nominees, so many of which have come out of committees with bipartisan votes. Nominees for positions that, during prior administration, sailed through the Senate by unanimous consent or by voice vote. But not with this Democrat minority. Oh, no. So in September, Senate Republicans broke the blockade, and now the blockade is being cleared. At the peak of the Democrat obstruction, more than 150 well-qualified nominees approved by Senate committees were waiting for a vote on the Senate floor. Yesterday, Mr. President, we confirmed 107 of those nominees, and we did it in a group. This is one of the largest confirmations in the history of the United States. Now there are only 26 nominees on the executive calendar. Our committees are hard at work to approve more nominees, and we're going to confirm them in short order. As of this morning, President Trump has had 298 nominees confirmed in his second term. By comparison, at this point, Joe Biden had confirmed only 201 in his first and only term. President Trump had confirmed only 183 nominees at the same time in his first term. So the Senate's constitutional duty of advise and consent is now back. President Trump now has his team confirmed and ready to be sworn in, from assistant secretaries to ambassadors, United States attorneys. The federal government is better positioned today to keep our nation safe and secure and prosperous. Senate Republicans are going to continue to work to get America back on track, no matter what obstacles the Democrats continue to throw in our path. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Minority Whip.
Mr. President, I came to the floor a few minutes after Senator Thune, the Republican leader, spoke, and I missed part of his statement, but I think I heard most of it. I listened carefully to the statement by the senator from Wyoming, and let me say at the outset that I consider them both to be friends. We disagree on many things politically, but over the years I've come to work with both of them and look forward to doing that again someday. I was disappointed in both of their statements because of what was not said. How can you talk about the government shutdown without ever mentioning health care costs to American families? How can you do that? I mean, it's a situation where we understand, I hope, that the Democrats are not in this position for any reason other than to stop the dramatic increase in health care premiums that American families will face unless we do something and do it now. State after state, the notices are going out that the cost of health insurance for working families in America is going to go up dramatically, in some cases more than 100%. And that is going to be hurtful to many. They'll have to look for different health insurance plans that they can afford, which means more money out of pocket, or they're going to drop their health insurance coverage altogether. How can the Republican leaders stand before us and even refuse to acknowledge that that is the issue that drives this government shutdown? The Republicans are insisting on their approach to the budget because they don't want to see American families protected when it comes to these health insurance increases. And the increases are already being announced. 10 states so far have announced them. October 27th is the magic date, if you will, for the announcement in my state of Illinois. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to hear from hundreds, if not thousands, of families across my state that increasing the costs for families is creating a hardship they never anticipated. We believe on the Democratic side this is the time to act now, to move together to stop these increases from taking place, because these increases were part of the big, beautiful Republican budget. The Trump budget, voted for by every Republican senator and no Democratic senators. The Trump budget, which of course he signed into law, that's what's leading to these increases, because the plans, the Affordable Care Act insurance plans, are no longer going to enjoy a subsidy, a tax credit, to help families pay the premiums, and that's why the cost is going to go up so dramatically. We can change it. We can do it, but we have to do it quickly. We ought to move on it this week. I wish the House of Representatives were in session. They haven't shown up for 2 weeks. Speaker Johnson happens to believe that being AWOL is the right thing for his Republican members. I don't think it's the right thing for America. Democrats and Republicans should be in this Capitol negotiating, sitting at a table together. And the first item on the agenda has to be health care costs for American families. All this talk about dangerous game and radical left policies and managements, it is not a radical left idea that a working family ought to have affordable health insurance. It is basic in America. As flawed as our health system is in this country, and as great as it is in many respects, if people cannot afford to have their coverage for their family, then hardship, it follows. That's the real reason. You say, well, what about the cost? Remember, this is an administration that wants to give $20 billion to Argentina. $20 billion this president's planning on giving. I'm worried more about 20 million Americans who will lose their health insurance if we don't do something and do it quickly. The American people get it. This issue has gone from the Beltway to the backyards of America. People know that this is coming, and they're worried about it, and they should be. They want us to do something, and they want it done now. And we are making the fight on this continuing resolution because it is timely, and we need bipartisan support to pass it. So let's do something positive in a bipartisan way. And dealing with the cost of health insurance is my approach that I would suggest. Let me take this to another issue that is near and dear to my heart, and that's what's happening in my home state of Illinois. We all know the popular quote, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Or in President Trump's case, if a person shows you who they are 1 million times over, believe them. President Trump has shown us his unlawful and inhumane priorities over and over again, city after city. He continues to deploy militarized immigration agents and National Guard troops to to more American cities purely for political theater. He wants America to talk about the Texas National Guard in Illinois, not about health care costs facing American families. But it's not going to work. Unfortunately, the men and women of the Texas National Guard who are in the state of Illinois as of yesterday have been sent off on a political assignment, political theater. Instead of working to find a bipartisan way to reopen the government, lower the cost of health care, President Trump is focused on scoring points against his perceived enemies. Just yesterday, 200 or 300 members of the Texas National Guard joined federal law enforcement officers in Chicago, along with President Trump's loyal FBI Director, Kash Patel. The truth is that the arrival of the Texas National Guard and the FBI Director will not make Chicago safer. It will only escalate the unnecessary and dangerous situation this president himself has created. I still can't get the image out of my mind from 2 weeks ago when the ICE officials in full combat gear carrying long rifles were marching down Michigan Avenue. It was a hateful effort that is used to provoke people into strong emotional feelings. This administration's unlawful use of military resources to police American cities makes our country less safe, and it's a mistake that will be remembered in the history books. I pray that the court system will respond accordingly as they did in the case of Oregon in Illinois when the hearing tomorrow is brought before the federal judge. Deploying the Texas National Guard without the consent of Illinois elected officials is, in my estimation, unnecessary and unlawful. The Posse Comitatus Act expressly forbids the use of our nation's military for civilian law enforcement unless expressly authorized by statute or the Constitution. National Guard personnel do not deserve to be used by the president's political pawns. And let me say and make it clear, as much as I regret the decision by the Texas governor to send his National Guard troops into Illinois, and as much as I want them to leave immediately, I do not make those statements at the expense of the individuals who are in the Guard and volunteered to serve their state and nation. The same thing is true with the federalized Illinois National Guard. They are doing what they are ordered to do, as according to the military standards. But the bottom line is, we all know they are not fighting crime. If the Trump administration truly wants to help Chicago, and I don't believe they do, and Illinois, it won't defy our elected leaders. It will work with us. It would restore millions of dollars it suspended, the Trump administration suspended, in crime prevention and public safety grants. Instead, this administration has chosen to use America's military to create chaos and sow fear in our cities. We all agree on the importance of reducing crime and making our communities safer. The president claims his aggressive immigration raids and threats to deploy troops are to help get violent criminals off the streets. I come to the floor 2 straight days, and this is the third, to condemn what happened last week in the city of Chicago on Tuesday. A South Shore apartment building was raided in the middle of the night. Doors were crashed down. Families were rousted out of their bedrooms, many of them brought out to the street and questioned as to whether they were in America legally. Some were American citizens, we don't know how many, and we certainly don't know if there were any criminals found as a result of that. No report. But we do know this: what happened on that street on that night was not the way America does business and shouldn't be. It was to terrorize these families with no warrant for their arrest and no suspicion that they had committed crimes, simply because they looked Hispanic and maybe looked like foreigners, I'm not sure. This action was taken against them. These attacks are part of Stephen Miller's personal agenda for mass deportation at any cost. They've pulled FBI, DEA, and ATF agents from their assignments, important assignments to stop narcotics and other things, to carry out the president's immigration agenda. They've stopped working on fighting crimes like terrorism, gun violence, human trafficking, and drug smuggling, to land a helicopter near a building in Chicago and to bring 30 families out into the street in the middle of the night. I have fought for humane reforms to our immigration system and evidence-based ways to reduce crime in our cities. If the president is serious about fixing our immigration system or lowering crime in our communities, I'll join in on that effort. But sending in militarized federal immigration agents and National Guard troops to our communities is not the way to do it. These actions have accomplished what I believe is the President's true intention, sowing fear in the hearts of our communities, especially our immigrant communities, and consolidating the President's power in Washington. The actions taken by this administration undermine the very fabric of America, a nation that was founded on the belief that all people should be free from tyranny. I remember a time when every member of Congress would have risen in outrage if the administration attempted to use the military unlawfully against the cities and communities and states that they represent. Unfortunately, this time has passed. There's nothing but silence from the other side of the aisle. Congressional Republicans are content to stand aside in abject servility to this president as he tramples the Constitution. But Americans should not stay silent. People across Illinois are peacefully making their voices heard and letting this administration know the attacks on our city will not go unchallenged. As a senator from Illinois, I'll do everything in my power to hold this administration accountable for their unlawful actions. They may think this is a diversion of attention from the basic issue of controlling health care costs and helping working American families afford their health insurance. I think it's much more. It is a threat to our republic and our Constitution, and I hope that others will join me in condemning this activity. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Hawaii.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that I be permitted to speak for 5 minutes, Senator Heinrich be permitted to speak for up to 10 minutes, and Senator Daines be permitted to speak for 5 minutes prior to the scheduled votes.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that I be given permission to use a prop.
Without objection.
Mr. President, it is day 8 of the government shutdown, but it is day 19 of the House being on vacation. How is it possible that the party in charge of the government is sitting at home while the government is shut down? Well, let's take a look. So this is the House schedule. These yellow blocks are work days. It's already a pretty nice schedule. Most people, if they are fortunate, get either 7 days or 10 days of vacation. Some people get less, some people get more, but nobody gets this amount of time off. Now, we call that a district work period or a home work period, and that's true. We need to be home to interact with our constituents, but that's what August is for. So here's what happened. They left early on the 25th, specifically to avoid a vote on the Epstein files. Then they had this week off, 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 this day off, come back. 1, 2, 3, long weekend. 1, 2, 3, 4, long weekend. 1, 2, 3, 4, long weekend. Another break, another break, another break, and now they're saying another break. Get back to work. Get back to work. We are facing a healthcare crisis, and we didn't pull this out of some Democratic strategist lab. And the presiding officer knows this in his home state. Prices are about to spike disproportionately among people who voted for Donald Trump, disproportionately in rural communities, disproportionately among farmers. And they're not going to spike a little. This is not like normally 4% increase is now 7%. For 22 million Americans, the price of health care is about to go up 114%. 114%. So you can find some people who are only paying like a 40 or 50% increase, and you still can't afford that. Most people can't afford a 40 or 50% increase in the cost of almost anything. But health care is a big chunk of the cost of living. And so here we are, as Democrats, saying, help us help you. Republicans, you created this mess that is causing your signature legislative achievement to be a drag on your electoral chances. And if we were a little bit more cynical, we would just let you stew in it. But we want those 24 million people, 22 million people to have relief. And so we're simply saying we can open the government tomorrow morning if Donald John Trump realizes that he's hurting his own people. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the following remarks be recorded in a different part of the journal.
Without objection.
I want to follow up on what the Democratic whip is talking about in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. We all swore an oath to the Constitution, and I am honestly scared. I used to do this sort of shtick on Twitter where I would say, the thing about what Donald Trump said on Twitter is that and then I would just say, he's trying to take your health care away. And my point was, that's a distraction from the main issue, which was that he was going to try to take your health care away. That's not true anymore. He's going through with these authoritarian actions. The last time he posted that one of his political enemies should be jailed, it was James Comey, and then James Comey was indicted. This morning he pled not guilty. His trial is in January. And so this morning, Donald John Trump, with the assistance of the Texas governor, who is endlessly servile to him, is mobilizing, over the objection of the Illinois governor, 200 or 300 troops to go into Chicago to do nobody knows really what other than to terrorize people. They're belaying off a helicopter into an apartment building in urban Chicago. Give me a break. Unless you think this is theater, this morning, Donald Trump is in one of his moods and he says, Governor Pritzker should go to jail. Are we to assume he's kidding this time? Are you sure he's kidding this time? Oh, he's just trolling. Last time, 3 weeks ago, he clearly wasn't trolling. The Attorney General went through with what he asked. And so I'm asking my Republican colleagues who swore an oath to the Constitution and love this country just like I do, to say publicly or privately, I don't care, enough is enough. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from New Mexico.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is a national monument in New Mexico that is extremely important to me and our community. It's called the Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument. And it has rocky spires that jut into the sky and preside over bustling communities in southern New Mexico. It's also home to nearly 250 archaeological sites, including some of the earliest Native American heritage sites in North America, and places like Shelter Cave, Conklin Cavern, and the Aden Lava Flow Wilderness. This January, the Bureau of Land Management issued its most recent monument management plan for Organ Mountains Desert Peaks. It sets out in this plan how the land will be used over the coming decades. And it came after years of engagement with public land users. From comment periods to public meetings to feedback sessions, input from public land users is the heart of how we administer our public lands across the country. In the end, land use plans like this one take time and are the result of hundreds, even thousands of people's work that deserves respect. And that's why I'm here. Beginning this week, the Senate is voting on 3 resolutions of disapproval on resource management plans prepared by the Bureau of Land Management. Now, resource management plans are a pretty simple idea. Every decade or two, public land managers look at a region as a whole and figure out how to balance all the competing different uses of public land across that landscape. They figure out where recreation should be prioritized and where prime game habitat should be protected. They figure out what land should be available for uses like grazing or oil and gas production. They identify important cultural sites and historic resources that deserve our protection. And they also determine which land use requirements can be eased for things like pipelines or transmission lines. They do all of this with the input of local communities, recreation businesses, public land users, tribal governments, energy developers, and more. But I'm here now because Republicans want to rescind these land use plans through the Congressional Review Act. And by doing that, they brush away all of the local voices and community input that went into making these plans. Imagine telling tribal communities that their opinion no longer matters on their ancestral lands. Telling hunters that their opinion no longer matters on the lands they used to fill their families' freezers. Telling hikers that their opinion no longer matters on the routes that they know like the back of their hand. Telling local communities that the way their land is used is no longer of importance. Telling all of us that our voices do not matter when it comes to the very lands that are our American birthright. And here's the thing, they're doing it across the board on every resource management plan since 1996 without even admitting it. So let me walk you through what they're hoping that you won't notice. First, it's important to understand that resource management plans affect nearly every use on public land, from bird watching to coal mining. These plans get a whole rewrite every few decades, but in between, smaller amendments are made to address specific places and specific uses that need to be updated. These amendments are the normal way for new administrations to change plans that they disagree with. Until today. Now, instead of using the usual amendment process, which involves all of those same stakeholders, Congress is voting to outright overturn and repeal these plans. Until today, Congress had never, ever used a congressional resolution of disapproval to change or overturn a land use plan. That's because no administration has ever considered these land use plans to be quote-unquote rules under federal statute. So let me say that again. No administration, none, since the Congressional Review Act was passed in 1996, has ever treated land use plans as rules. So here's what that means legally. No land use plan has been submitted to Congress, a legal requirement for rules. It's never happened. And because the Congressional Review Act prohibits rules from going into effect until 60 days after they are submitted to Congress, and no administration has ever submitted one, then every land use plan after 1996 never legally went into effect. And if they never went into effect, then all of the leases and permits and rights-of-way that flow from those plans may not be legally valid. That means that every grazing permit, every energy right-of-way, recreation permit, outfitter guide permit, timber sale, even oil and gas lease issued under a plan finalized after 1996 could be litigated. Every single one. That's bad. And it's not just because it's unprecedented, but because the actual impacts on real Americans could be devastating. For the country, it means potential chaos and uncertainty about what areas are protected on public lands. One of the resolutions under consideration this week is for a land use plan in Alaska. And a vote for that resolution would mean that the Ambler Industrial Corridor will be built. This is a 211-mile private access road that would destroy some of Alaska's wildest habitat and waterways to produce minerals, all for a foreign company. As someone from American Hunters and Anglers said, using slightly more colorful language that I'll leave out, this move obliterates years of public input from hunters and anglers and uses taxpayer dollars to prop up, I'll say it again, a foreign-owned mining company. The headline describing this road in Outdoor Life magazine reads, the Ambler Road project would jeopardize one of the last great wilderness hunts in America. Now, Mr. President, I've been fortunate enough to hunt caribou in Alaska, and I have to say I doubt that my grandchildren will ever have that opportunity. And what's even more concerning to me is the impact that the Ambler Industrial Corridor will have on subsistence hunting and fishing. This private industrial mining corridor will carve its way, in addition, through gates of the Arctic National Park. You heard me right. We are sacrificing one of our most spectacular national parks to enrich a foreign mining company. I have to think that Teddy Roosevelt is rolling over in his grave. The damage will be irreparable to the landscape, to our American birthright in these public lands.
United States. And they did this despite strong opposition from local counties in Montana, local elected officials. In fact, the entire Montana congressional delegation and the governor of Montana himself Greg Gianforte. In fact, Governor Gianforte specifically requested that the BLM director withdraw that proposed amendment during the BLM's official, quote, governor's consistency review, and Biden's BLM ignored him. And when the governor submitted an official appeal to Biden's BLM director, our governor was rebuffed. This lack of respect for Montana's local and statewide elected officials cannot be ignored. It will not be ignored, and it's going to get changed and reversed today with the passage of the CRA. Let's be clear what this Resource Management Plan amendment is and what we're doing today with this Congressional Review Act. The RMPA is an attack on Montana jobs. It's an attack on Montana communities. It's an attack on Montana's energy production. It's an attack on Montana's economy. What today's resolution does is it rolls back officially Biden's war on Montana coal, and it does not affect the underlying resource management plan. What we're doing today is we are disapproving of Biden's ill-conceived amendment and nothing else. This CRA does not prohibit the BLM from issuing a new amendment. The CRA simply prohibits the new administration from issuing a substantially similar coal amendment, and in this case, that means they can't permanently prohibit any new coal development. Today, you may hear from the other side of the aisle that the sky is falling. That is absolutely not true. What we're doing today is righting a wrong, something the Biden administration slipped in after the election, and we're grateful that we were paying attention. We're going to right this wrong. A midnight Biden rule that was issued without the support from the state of Montana. Talk about federal bureaucratic overreach. Taking this action this day, today, will lead to more Montana jobs, more Montana energy. By the way, more Montana tax revenue to support K through 12 education and stronger communities in eastern Montana. I urge my colleagues to again, like we did last night with the procedural vote, to support with this final vote Montana jobs, Montana communities, and to vote yes on its passage.
Under the previous order, the clerk will read the title of the joint resolution a third time.
HJ Res 104, joint resolution providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code and so forth.
The question occurs on passage of the joint resolution. Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty. Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Mr. Rono, Mr. Hoven. Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis. Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Moreno, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy. Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Barrasso, Bozeman, Britt, Collins, Daines, Ernst, Hoeven, Johnson, Justice, Marshall, Schmidt, Sheehy. Senators voting in the negative: Baldwin, Blunt Rochester, Booker, Hickenlooper, Merkley, Ossoff, Peters, Wyden. Ms. Cantwell, no. Mr. Scott of Florida, aye. Mrs. Capito, aye. Mr. Kelly, no. Mr. Risch, aye. Mr. Husted, aye. Ms. Cortez Masto, no. Ms. Duckworth, no. Mr. Fetterman, no. Mr. Crapo, aye. Ms. Lummis, aye. Mr. Padilla, no. Mr. Rounds, aye. Ms. Murkowski, aye. Mr. Schiff, no. Mr. Kane, no. Mr. Murphy, no. Mr. Cornyn, aye. Ms. Also Brooks, no. Ms. Hirono, no. Mr. Grassley, aye. Mr. Durbin, no. Ms. Hassan, no. Mr. Banks, aye. Ms. Rosen, no. Mr. Gallego, no. Mrs. Fisher, aye. Mr. Curtis, aye. Mrs. Blackburn, aye. Mr. Heinrich, no. Mrs. Moody, aye. Mr. McCormick, aye. Mr. Wicker, aye. Mrs. Gillibrand, no. Mrs. Hyde Smith, aye. Mr. Reed, no. Mr. Lujan, no. Mr. Kramer, aye. Mr. Whitehouse, no. Mr. Langford, aye. Mrs. Shaheen, no. Ms. Slotkin, no. Mr. Budd, aye. Mr. Ricketts, aye. Mr. Warnock, no. Mr. Bennett, no. Mr. Paul, aye. Mr. Kennedy, aye. Mr. Sullivan, aye. Sounds a lot. Mr. Schatz, no. Mr. Young, aye. Mr. Moran, aye. Mr. Haggerty, aye. Mr. Thune, aye. Mr. Tuberville, aye. Mrs. Murray, no. Mr. King, no. Mr. Warner, no. Mr. Sanders, no. Mr. Moreno, aye.
You see not agree to or not invoked.
Ms. Warren, no. Mr. Blumenthal, no. Mr. Van Hollen, no. Mr. Kim, no. Mr. Schumer, no. Mr. Tillis, aye. Mr. Lee, aye. Mr. Cotton, aye. Mr. Graham, aye. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye. Mr. McConnell, aye. Ms. Smith, no. Mr. Hawley, aye. Mr. Mullen, aye. Mr. Welch, no. Mr. Cassidy, aye. Mr. Coons, no. Ms. Klobuchar, no. Mr. Markey, no.
On this vote, the yeas are 52, the nays are 47, and the joint resolution is passed. The Democratic leader.
I move to proceed to the motion to reconsider the cloture vote on the motion to proceed to S2882.
The question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I move to reconsider the cloture vote on the motion to proceed to S2882.
Questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
I yield the floor.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Thank you. Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a closed debate on the motion to proceed to calendar number 167 S2882, a bill making continuing appropriations for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2026, and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators.
By unanimous consent, the mandatory quorum call has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that the debate on the motion to proceed to S2882, a bill making continuing appropriations for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2026, and for other purposes shall be brought to a close upon reconsideration? The yeas and nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand,
Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Marino, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Bennett, Blunt Rochester, Coons, Fetterman, Gallego, Gillibrand, Hassan, Heinrich, Hirono, Kane, Kelly, Kim, Klobuchar, Markey, Murray, Padilla, Peters, Rosen, Sanders, Schatz, Slotkin, Van Hollen, Warner, Warren, Welch, and Wyden. Mr. Reed, aye. Senators voting in the negative: Banks, Blackburn, Bozeman, Capito, Cassidy, Collins, Cornyn, Cotton, Kramer, Crapo, Curtis, Daines, Ernst, Graham, Grassley, Haggerty, Hawley, Hoven, Johnson, Kennedy, Langford, Lee, Lummis, McConnell, Marino, Mullen, Murkowski, Paul, Ricketts, Scott of South Carolina, Sheehy, Sullivan, Tillis, Tuberville, Wicker, and Young. Mr. Blumenthal, aye. Mr. Durbin, aye. Mr. Markey, aye. Ms. Cortez Masto, aye. Mr. Schiff, aye. Mr. Barrasso, no. Mr. Thune, no. Mr. Murphy, aye. Mrs. Hyde Smith, no. Mr. Warnock, aye. Mr. Risch, no. Mr. Merkley, aye. Ms. Smith, aye. Ms. Duckworth, aye. Mr. Scott of Florida, no. Ms. Also Brooks, aye. Mr. Ossoff, aye. Mr. King, aye. Mr. Marshall, no. Mr. Lujan, aye. Mr. McCormick, no. Mr. Moran, no. Mrs. Fisher, no. Mr. Budd, no. Mrs. Shaheen, aye.
We did grow up going to Redskins games, but
Mr. Schmidt, no. Mr. Justice, no. Ms. Cantwell, aye. Mr. Husted, no. Mr. Hickenlooper, aye. Ms. Baldwin, aye. Mr. Booker. Mr. Booker, aye. Mrs. Britt. Mrs. Britt, no. Mrs. Moody. Mrs. Moody, no. Mr. Rounds. Mr. Rounds, no. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Whitehouse, aye. Mr. Schumer, aye.
Okay. On this vote, the yeas are 47, the nays are 52. 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion upon reconsideration is not agreed to.
Mr. President,
Senator from Kansas.
I move to proceed to the motion to reconsider the cloture vote on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371.
Questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. Senator from Kansas.
I move to reconsider the cloture vote on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371.
Questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the motion to proceed to Calendar 168, H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators.
By unanimous consent, the mandatory quorum call has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that debate on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes, shall be brought to a close upon reconsideration? The yeas and nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
No.
Thank you. Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Banks. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. There you go. Thank you. I got you. I got you. Ms. Blunt Rochester. Mr. Booker. Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Britt. Mr. Budd. Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran. Thank you. Mr. Marino, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff. No, he did not. Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Britt, Budd, Cornyn, Cortez Masto, Daines, Fetterman, Husted, Hyde-Smith, Justice, Marshall, McCormick, Moody, Marino, Ricketts, and Rounds. Mr. Sheehy, aye. Senators voting in the negative: Alsobrooks, Baldwin, Blunt-Rochester, Booker, Coons, Duckworth, Durbin, Gallego, Hassan, Hickenlooper, Hirono, Kelly, Kim, Klobuchar, Lujan, Murphy, Murray, Ossoff, Padilla, Rosen, Sanders, Schatz, Schumer, Shaheen, Smith, Van Hollen, and Welch. Mr. King, aye. Mr. Scott of Florida, aye. Mr. Kane, no. Mr. Reed, no. Mrs. Fisher, aye. Mr. Whitehouse, no. Mr. Peters, no. Mr. Risch, aye. Mr. Curtis, aye. Mr. Johnson, aye. Mr. Kennedy, aye. Mr. Tillis, aye. Ms. Slotkin, no. Mr. Bennett, no. Mr. Schiff, no. Mr. Banks, aye. Mr. Wyden, no. Mr. Paul, no. Ms. Lummis, aye. Mr. McConnell, aye. Ms. Warren, no. Mr. Young, aye. Mrs. Gillibrand, no. Mr. Sullivan, aye. Mr. Barrasso, aye. Mr. Cassidy, aye. Mrs. Capito, aye. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye. Mr. Lee, aye. Ms. Murkowski, aye. Mr. Grassley, aye. Ms. Ernst, aye. Mr. Graham, aye. Mr. Schmidt, aye. Ms. Collins, aye. Mr. Langford, aye. Mr. Crapo, aye. Mr. Merkley. Mr. Merkley, no. Mr. Wicker, aye. Mr. Hawley, aye. Ms. Cantwell, no. Mr. Cotton, aye. Mr. Boozman, aye. Mrs. Blackburn. Mrs. Blackburn, aye. Mr. Kramer, aye. Mr. Tuberville, aye. Yes, you did. Mr. Blumenthal? No.
Mr. Warner, no. Mr. Mullen. Mr. Mullen. Aye. Mr. Moran. Mr. Moran. Aye. Mr. Haggerty. Mr. Haggerty. Aye. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Hoven. Aye. Mr. Thune. Mr. Thune. Aye. Mr. Markey. Mr. Markey. No. Mr. Warnock. Mr. Warnock. No. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Heinrich. No.
On this vote, the yeas are 54, the nays are 45. 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative, the motion upon reconsideration is not agreed to.
Mr. President,
Senator from Tennessee.
what is the pending business before the Senate?
The clerk will report the pending business.
Calendar number 115 S2296, a bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2026 for military activities of the Department of Defense and so forth and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we know that under Joe Biden and Chris Wray's leadership, the FBI, it turns out, was truly rotten to the core. In many ways, they oversaw the worst political corruption of the justice system in our nation's history. And now we have proof. They raided Mar-a-Lago. They indicted President Trump on baseless charges and weaponized America's top law enforcement agency against conservatives, against parents, and against people of faith. On Monday, we found out that this abuse of power had reached the halls of Congress. Thanks to internal FBI documents provided by Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino to Chairman Grassley, we now know that the Biden FBI tracked the private communications of 8 U.S. senators, including me. Now, what we have in common is this. We're all Republicans. We all support President Trump. And we all had questions about the 2020 election. According to the documents that were given, the FBI tracked who we were calling on our phones, who was calling us, where we were physically located when the calls were made or received, and how long each call lasted. This is an abuse of authority. It is despicable, and we know that their abuses were far greater and more numerous than those abuses to us. Now, earlier this year, Chairman Grassley released whistleblower disclosures showing that the Biden FBI obtained the government-issued cell phones of both President Trump and former Vice President Pence. Last month, we learned that the agency launched a political investigation into nearly 100 Republican and conservative groups, including the Republican National Committee, the Republican Attorneys General Association, and Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA. We're only learning about this weaponization of government against conservatives because the Trump administration is committed to total transparency for the American people. The work that President Trump, his administration, Attorney General Pam Bondi, Director Patel, and Deputy Director Bongino are doing is so appreciated, not only by us, but by the American people. It is time for the weaponization of government to stop. It is time to make certain that these individuals who did this, that were part of the CR-15 unit that worked with Jack Smith, that were working on Arctic frost, it is time for them to be fired from their positions. And I appreciate that this work is taking place each and every day. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the next portion of my remarks be placed separately in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, my colleagues and I that are on the Judiciary Committee had the pleasure of hearing from Attorney General Bondi, who has done so much to restore accountability and transparency at the U.S. Department of Justice. Instead of waging political investigations, the department, under her leadership, is focused on enforcing the rule of law. And that includes enforcing the rule of law in Memphis, Tennessee. As we speak, the Justice Department and FBI are among the 13 federal agencies that are on the ground working with local and state officials to support the Memphis Police Department and to lock up violent criminals. In just over a week of operations, President Trump's Memphis Safe Task Force has delivered tremendous results. As of Monday, authorities have made